Okay, here we are, fueling up, going through the New Testament in a year. We are in Matthew chapter 14. A lot of stuff going on in this chapter. John the Baptist getting beheaded, Jesus feeding the 5,000, Jesus walking out on the water and challenging his disciple to walk out on the water. And so I think we're being challenged to walk out on the water. Why not give it a whirl, see what happens? At that time, the time that we're in here, Herod the Tetrarch heard reports about Jesus and said to his attendants, "This is John the Baptist. He's risen from the dead. That's why these miraculous powers are at work with him." Well, he's got a guilty conscience, this guy, Herod. Herod is a madman. He's cruel. He's vicious. He's arbitrary. He had John the Baptist beheaded. And apparently, his conscience isn't leaving him alone. He heard about reports about Jesus, and he thought that this was John the Baptist come back from the dead after he'd been beheaded now. That's something. So in verse 3, it says, "Now Herod," here's the story of Herod and John. "Now Herod had arrested John, and he had bound him in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. For John had been saying, 'It's not lawful for you to have her.' And Herod wanted to kill John, but he was afraid of the people because they thought John was a prophet." So he's ruling over the Jewish people for Rome, Herod. He has taken his brother Philip's wife and made her his wife. And John the Baptist is like, man, it's not right. Interesting that John the Baptist had access to him to say this. And Herod liked John, but his wife doesn't like John. She doesn't like John saying those things. So on Herod's birthday, the daughter of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, who he took, this vicious, arbitrary guy, danced for the guests and pleased Herod so much that he promised her on an oath whatever she would ask. So some commentators say, she was dancing in a promiscuous manner. They're having a party, they're having a big party, drunken bash, and this young girl comes out and dances. And Herod's like, "Oh, that's so wonderful. I'll give you anything. I'll give you anything." So his wife, his brother Philip's wife, who he now has, it was her daughter who was dancing. Herod promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me the head here on a platter, John the Baptist. Give me the head of John the Baptist." Wow, this lady's cruel, man. This lady is tough. Whoa. And the king was distressed. Because of his oaths and his dinner guests, he ordered that her request be granted. So he gets sort of forced into it for embarrassment, political reasons. You see, before he was afraid to do anything about John because the people considered John to be a prophet. And he was like, well, I don't want to kill a Jewish prophet. People aren't going to like me at all. And so he granted her request and had John beheaded in prison. His head was brought on a platter and given to the girl who carried it to her mom. Wow! Mom, here it is. Mom, here it is. And John's disciples came and took the body and buried it. And then they went and told Jesus what happened. It's a wild story. This girl dancing like this and mom saying, ask for his head and bring the head out on a platter. And she gives the platter to her mom. And man, we say that we're in a bad way. Oh, our culture, we're in a bad way. Where violent, crazy things are going on. Politicians are going nuts. We ain't there yet. I can tell you that. We ain't there yet. And what it shows is that Jesus and his followers have existed in some really trying and difficult times culturally around them. And so we can make it through any time. Jesus will help us. God will help us. And so these were those times. And it said, when Jesus heard what happened, he withdrew by a boat privately to a solitary place. And hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the towns. And when Jesus saw the large crowd, he had compassion on them and he healed them. So Jesus, he hears about this and he's going to go into a quiet place, but the crowds see him. They start following after him. It says Jesus had compassion on them. He had compassion on them and he healed their sick. This is the whole thing about Jesus. He has compassion on them. Even in the midst of this craziness, even in the midst of this crazy situation that's going on around them, Jesus is still being who Jesus is, having compassion on the people and healing the people. And as evening approached, the disciples came and they said, "This is a remote place and it's already late. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. Dismiss them and let them go." And Jesus said, they don't need to go away. You can give them something to eat. What? We can? We only have 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. And Jesus said, well, bring them here to me. So you just bring a little tiny bit to Jesus and Jesus can do something with it. You bring a little tiny bit to Jesus and Jesus can multiply it. What do you want to bring to Jesus? He can multiply it. And he directed the people to sit down on the grass, and taking 5 loaves and 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and he broke the loaves. Now he'll do a similar thing at the Last Supper, where he'll break it and hand it to his disciples. And then he gave it to his disciples, and the disciples gave it to the people. Well, this is what Jesus does. He takes what he has, he gives it to us, and we give it to people, and it multiplies. And it multiplies. He gives us love. We take that love and give it out to other people. How many people can we give Jesus love to? There's no number. We can just keep giving it and giving it and giving it. Here there's 5,000 that are being fed with just a few loaves. And they all ate and they were satisfied, and the disciples picked up 12 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate were 5,000 men besides the women and children. A lot of people there. A lot of people there. And so a little bit goes a long way. What he's given to us, our testimony, our story, what he's done, the love that he's given to us. We can just keep giving that away and giving that away and giving that away and giving that away and multiply it over thousands of times. So immediately, Jesus made disciples to get in a boat and go ahead of him to the other side. You guys go on the other side. And while he dismissed the crowd, and he dismissed them, and he went up to the mountainside by himself to pray. So he'd been wanting to do that since John. And later that night, he was alone. He was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from the land, buffeted by the waves because of the wind against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake, and when the disciples saw him on the lake, they were terrified. They said, "It's a ghost. What in the world's going on out there?" And they cried out in fear. But Jesus immediately said, "Take courage, it's me. Don't be afraid." Circle that. Take courage, it's me. Don't be afraid. And Peter said, "Lord, if it's you, then tell me to come out and walk in the water." And Jesus said, "Come." And then Peter got out of the boat. He walked on the water. He came towards Jesus. When he saw the wind, he was afraid. And beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." He should have kept his eyes on Jesus and not looked at the storm. So keep your eyes on Jesus. Don't look at the storm. Walk towards him. You can do it. You can walk on the water. The Lord is there. He said, "Come." But he had to look at the storm. And he said, "Save me." And immediately Jesus said, "Oh man, you little faith. Why do you have such little faith? You should have doubted. Like you were doing it, man. You were doing it." And when he climbed into the boat, the wind died down. And those who were in the boat worshiped him. And they said, Surely you are the Son of God. You are the man. You are the Son of God. And when they crossed over to the land of Gennesaret, and when the men of that place recognized Jesus, they sent word to all the surrounding country, "He's here." And the people brought all their sick to him. That's the same thing we should be doing. Go and getting our friends saying, "He's here." Bring people to church so they can hear the good news. They have their lives changed, transformed. Bring them, bring them, bring them. People brought all the sick to him and begged him to let the sick just touch the edge of his cloak, and all who touched him were healed. Wow, amazing. Get out of the boat. Get out of the boat. Go get the people. Bring them in. Have some faith. Oh, you could have done it. You could have done it. Well, we can still do it. We have the opportunity. The Lord is calling us. The Lord is telling us to come. Don't look at the storm. Hey, bless you guys. Love you. We'll continue in the New Testament. We did a whole chapter today, every verse. So bless you guys. We'll continue to move on in the Gospel of Matthew. Hey, bless you.